Hey guys, welcome back to the Pleasant Hill Cafe. I'm so glad that you could join us here today for coffee and questions, and just take a moment to hang out together. If you haven't noticed, it's starting to be the Christmas season. That's right. Advent is actually starts off this coming up Sunday, so that means we're 4 weeks out, 4 Sundays out at least from Christmas. And so what better thing to do for the Christmas season for coffee and questions than to answer Christmas related questions, right? I mean, let's do that for the next 4 weeks. So I put together a series of questions that I think are just generally good Christmas questions. We're talking about this week. We're going to talk about was Mary really a virgin when she gave birth to Jesus? Next week, I think we're going to cover who are the Magi. We're going to cover what is Advent? What is the meaning of Advent? Why do we do it? Is it even in the Bible? What is Advent all about? And then I don't know what the third one might be. I was thinking we might do talk about what's up with the star, or something else. If you got a question that you have about Christmas you'd like me to answer on that last one, let me know, and I'd love to answer that question. But I thought I'd start off with a big question, one in which there's been a lot of debate that's developed over the years, which is, was Mary really a virgin? Like, do we really need to even believe in the virgin birth? What is up with that anyways? That sort of thing. And so, what do we know about Mary, and what do we know about the virgin birth and all of that? So first thing that we know, just from the very top of everything, is that early Christians really did believe in the virgin birth. This is not something that was made up hundreds of years after the fact. They really did believe it. In fact, the books of the Bible that record it, Matthew and Luke, record this, and they were written in the lifetime of Mary. And so Mary would very much have had the chance to have said, no, that's not really true. And so it's most logical that they really did believe it. And in fact, we can trace back historical documents to very, very close to the originals, and so it's pretty reliable that we have an accurate representation of what the original Gospels looked like when they were written, and Mary would have had the opportunity to say no. Other people would have had the opportunity to say that's not true, that was made up. And so people really did believe it. People really believed that Mary was a virgin when Jesus was born. And so that gives us something to start off. Secondly, we know that Luke was a very good historian. There have been, throughout the years, different archaeologists that have believed, Luke, the Bible, it's not really real. And then they start studying an archaeologically side of things. They find out, oh, wait a second. Everything that they wrote about that we can study in archaeology has actually been verified. In fact, you can't, the Bible constantly is getting verified by archaeologists. And so it's a reliable book. And Luke in particular was a reliable historian. He was a doctor in his time, so he understood the way things work, the way the world works when it comes down to children. And he was a historian who says he interviewed people, probably Mary herself, to write the gospel. So those are a few things that we know about it. Now, how do we know that it exists? How do we know that it really happened? And I think the strongest argument we have is from a logical perspective. If Mary, was lying about the virgin birth, and Jesus was born in a natural way, then what would we know? We know that Jesus would just be a normal human being like everyone else. And Jesus goes around and he makes claims that he is the Son of God. In fact, the Jews believed that. I mean, you look at John chapter 5, and they don't like him. They look to kill him because why? He was making himself equal to God. And so it's constantly throughout the New Testament and the Gospels that Jesus is making these comments and that he is the Son of God. And if Mary gave birth to Jesus in the normal way, he was conceived by a man, then Jesus would have just been a man. And so that would make Jesus one of two things. right? Either a crazy guy who goes around declaring that he is God and is not reliable, or he's a liar, he's a con artist, right? Or the last one would be that he was simply deluded, that Mary was the con artist from the very beginning. And so I don't think that any of those things fit the Jesus that we see. And we know Jesus is real. We know that all historical scholars who are worth their salt do affirm in the reality of Jesus Christ having actually existed. And since we know Luke is very reliable, we know that most likely he did really die on the cross. And so Jesus being a liar, con artist, or deluded, crazy, it doesn't really fit Jesus. Now, first off, if he was a liar, if he was just a con artist, then he let himself get killed for his con. Like, he not just killed, but tortured, horrendously tortured, and then killed on the most terrible way of dying that you can imagine. The worst way of dying that's ever been created, which is dying on the cross. And so that doesn't really fit a con artist. I mean, to die for his own con. I mean, the point of a con artist, what they're trying to do is become rich or become famous, and that doesn't work out very well when you're dead. All right? And so it doesn't make sense that he would allow himself to get to that point, that at some point in time he would back down and say, oh, no, that's not really me. He'd take the 40 lashes and go on and start another con somewhere else, right? But that's not what we see in Jesus, that he was willing to go to the cross to die for his belief, for his teaching that he was the Son of God. So that really kind of doesn't make sense for Jesus to have been a con artist. Then, of course, on the other side, you have that Jesus was crazy. Now, I suppose that's possible, but the reality is, if you look at his teachings, those are not the teachings of a crazy man. Jesus' teachings are incredibly in depth. They're layer upon layer, and they just completely reveal new things, and yet everything is taught in such a way that the most common of person would have the ability to learn and understand and grow from it. And he was taking on the best minds of the day and putting them to shame. Now, is that the mind of a crazy guy who goes around saying, I'm the Son of God, much like someone today might run around saying, look at me, I'm Superman, right? I mean, obviously that doesn't make sense. That sort of person would be admitted into a insane asylum, and 12 guys would not travel around with him for 3 years of their life, and then go out, and most of them go out and die for him and his teachings. It's just not logical that a crazy guy would be able to do that. So lastly, you have Mary being this promiscuous con artist who deluded her son for the entirety of his 30 years of life before he started the ministry, which of course is a really long time to run a con. It's a very difficult thing to do. And if Jesus was not in on it, then most likely he was manipulated and broken because of the way that Mary had raised him. And he would fall more into that crazy level of things. All right. And lastly, for that is the reality that so many of the Old Testament prophecies came true. And we can point to all of the Old Testament prophecies about the coming Messiah and say that reliably points to Jesus Christ as the Son of God. Now, how could she have done that if it was just a con where she deluded this person? There would have been a lot of setup that she would have had to have done that just would have been outside of her control. And so I don't think that makes sense either. That the most logical thing is to believe that Jesus really was who he said he was, because he doesn't make sense. He doesn't fit the bill for a con artist. He doesn't fit the bill for a crazy man or a deluded man. All right, so if we have to accept Jesus as who he said he is, then we have to accept the virgin birth, because the virgin birth is the only thing that makes sense. If he's not the Son of God, then he can't really save us from our sins. He has to be the Son of God who was born without sin in order to save us from our sins. So without the virgin birth, there's no point in believing in him. And the reality is most people who deny the virgin birth are the ones who want to deny miracles in the first place. They just want to, they don't believe in the miraculous. They take a very naturalistic view on this world. And the problem is that's not accurate either. If you want to disprove the virgin birth to me, you have to disprove that miracles don't happen, and you can't do that. Try to prove to me that miracles don't happen in this world, because they are. They're happening all over the world all the time. And so we can't do that. And so we can't disprove that. And if we're going to believe in God anyways, then we have to believe in the reality and the possibility of the virgin birth. So it just makes the most sense to accept that. Last thought, and this is something that, just a sidetrack, is probably actually no reason for this video. David Matheson, he recorded on the Desiring God website that 79% of Americans believe in the virgin birth, including 27% of people who claim to not be Christians. Another thought is, if you read C.S. Lewis, if you know anything about him, he started off as an agnostic who was a professor in mythology. And when his friends, including J.R. Tolkien, convinced him to read the Bible, someone who had studied mythology for all of his adult training, read the Bible and said, "This is not a myth." Now, I think we can trust in the reality of the virgin birth. So enjoy your Christmas season knowing that Jesus really was born of a virgin, and that made all the difference in the world. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining in on our conversation. Love to hear more from you. Talk to you later.